It's not that I don't believe in rules. I just believe they don't apply to me. I was one of those children that ran with scissors. I tear the tags off mattresses. I haven't met a set of instructions or a recipe that I can't improve on by ignoring. And I routinely, almost religiously, set my cruise control to 1 mile over the speed limit. Now, if you don't think God doesn't have a sense of humor, well, let me tell you, in the 2 weeks that I've been acting bishop, almost every situation I've had to deal with in that office has involved the rules. And my standard response to rules, whatever, isn't cutting it. And so I've had to rethink my attitudes toward church rules and their place in the life of faith. And once I opened that door, I opened up the Pandora's box of what is the relationship between God's law, the Torah, and the good news of Jesus Christ. It's a critical question for the early church and for the writers of the New Testament. What is the relationship between the good news of Jesus Christ, his life, death, and resurrection, and the Jewish Torah? How do they fit together? It will be a question the church continues to wrestle with, right down to the time of Martin Luther, centuries later, as he talks about law and gospel. We find in the Gospels that Jesus pushes back against the law on numerous occasions, much to the ire of the Pharisees. Because the Pharisees held that it was the law that kept one in good stead with God. Keeping the law kept a right relationship with God, kept God in the game. Without keeping the law, God would condemn us. Keeping the law, God would save us. It's an attitude held not only by the Pharisees of the first century, but by many Christians these days. Although, like the Pharisees, they pick and choose which laws they hold near and dear to their hearts and which can conveniently be forgotten. It is this attitude, not the law itself, that Jesus pushes back against. And later, Paul. One cannot be saved by keeping the rules. Why? Have you ever tried to keep the rules? Have you ever tried to live under Jesus' interpretation of Torah? We end up like Paul. We do the things we know we shouldn't do, and we don't do the things we know we should do. Woe is me, a hopeless sinner. The law will not save us. It will drive us to God, though, because we find that we can't do it on our own. We can't keep this relationship healthy and in good stead. It is only by God's grace, as he demonstrates on the cross. A grace that is willing to go to no ends to keep us as his people and to preserve us as that community of the faithful, even when we are not so faithful. It is by God's grace that we will find our way to heaven, as well as living a good and healthy life on earth. And God does that by holding before us the law as a mirror, to reveal to us a need to change, a need to stumble and start and crawl to the grace of God. We recognize we can't do it without God. Mirrors are ugly things at times because they reveal the truth about us and about our lives. A couple months ago, I looked in the mirror for the first time in a while. I didn't like what I saw. I'd become very unhealthy. I knew I couldn't do it alone. I've lost probably a couple thousand pounds. Well, actually, the same 10 over and over again for years. It would take more. I needed help. And so I got a health coach. And with the health coach came a lot of law, a lot of rules. If I was to be healthy, I needed to change my way of living. And these are the things I need to do that. That's the other function of the law. It keeps us in healthy community. Because we cannot do it alone, God calls, gathers, enlightens, sanctifies, and keeps us together in faith, in that mystical body we call the church. The church is our health coach that helps us along the way, that continues to announce God's grace and forgiveness week after week, that enables us to taste and see the very grace of God in Christ Jesus. I don't like rules any more than I ever have. I'm starting to realize there's a place for them, but I need to keep perspective. Thank God for God's grace. But my delight is becoming in the law. Who would have known? Just as I am without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God, I come. I come. Just as I am, thy love unknown has broken every barrier down. Now to be thine, yea, thine alone, O Lamb of God, I come. I